My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 35 years old and I live in Denver. I work as a financial analyst for a mid-size investment firm. I've always been the numbers person, the one who calculates risks, who notices patterns before they turn into problems. But as I sit in the hotel lobby, my suitcase by my feet, I can't seem to breathe through the numbers on my phone screen. We're checking out of the Valencia Hotel in San Diego. It's late morning the day after my younger brother's wedding. Sunlight is slanting across the marble floor, catching the gold trim on the reception desk. My boyfriend Drew is standing beside me signing the bill. I should be thinking about the flight back to Colorado. I should be smiling after a beautiful beach ceremony. Instead, I'm staring at my banking app and the color is draining from my face. $14,000 gone. I blink, refresh the screen, same result. Drew notices the change in my expression. His voice is low, but his body is already angling toward mine. What is it? I show him the screen, my fingers trembling as I hand him the phone. 14,000, I whisper. It was over 28 just yesterday, I checked before we flew out. He scrolls through the recent transactions, his jaw tightening. Did you authorize these? He asks, already knowing the answer. 3 names jump off the screen. Brianna Langston, $5,000. Mark Langston, $4,000. Karen Langston, $5,000. My sister, my brother-in-law, my mother. All transfers executed last night, 10:43 p.m. I was in the bathroom then, drying my hair. My phone had been on the nightstand unlocked. They used my phone, I say quietly. The realization tastes metallic. They did this while we were in the room. Drew puts the phone down carefully like it might shatter. You need to call the bank right now. I nod, but my hand doesn't move. Something inside me isn't ready. Not yet. I've been the steady one in the family for years, the one who sends money without being asked twice, the one who always seems to be doing okay, so why not her? We step into the elevator. My grip on the handle of my suitcase feels too tight. My ears are ringing, not from anger exactly, but from the slow flood of betrayal washing over me. Just as we reach the lobby level, my phone buzzes. A call. My mother's name lights up the screen. I hesitate, then answer. Claire, Mom says like nothing's wrong. Did you already check out? I need to ask you something, I interrupt, keeping my voice as even as I can. 3 large transfers were made from my account last night. Did you know anything about that? There's a beat of silence, then a soft chuckle like I've just asked if she remembered to water the plants. Oh, honey, she says, I thought you'd notice sooner. Honestly, it was less than I expected. I stop walking. What? Brianna said it was wasteful to keep that much in your checking account, so we split it. Consider it a wedding gift for your brother. The words don't land right. They echo in a strange, hollow part of me, like she's reading from a script she didn't think she'd be questioned about. I start, but my throat tightens. You split it. Drew leans closer, sensing the tone shift. I put the call on speaker. That's theft, I say, my voice cracking. You took my phone. You moved money out of my account without permission. Don't be so dramatic, she snaps. We're family. You're single. You have a great salary. What are you going to hoard it and live alone forever? Drew jumps in. Ma'am, this is Claire's boyfriend. What you just described is a criminal act. Unauthorized bank transfers using someone else's device, especially while they're unaware, is illegal. Mom scoffs. Are you a lawyer or just someone who likes meddling in family business? I take the phone back. Who took my phone, Mom? Brianna, she replies without hesitation. Your password was too easy to guess. That old dog's name. Really Claire. Then she hangs up. I lower the phone slowly. The lobby is suddenly too bright, too loud. The clink of glass from the bar, the rustle of bags on tile. All of it feels far away. Drew reaches for my hand. We're not letting this go, he says quietly. I nod numb. I always thought being generous was part of who I was, that helping my family was a sign of strength, not weakness. But now, standing in the middle of a hotel lobby, $14,000 poorer, I wonder how long I've mistaken their silence for love. How long they've assumed they had the right to take. We walk outside into the late morning sun. The warmth feels wrong against my skin. I fish the hotel keycard from my pocket and turn it over in my hand. Temporary shelter. That's all this was. Not protection, not safety. I slide it into the drop box, a gesture that feels heavier than it should. Something has changed. I'm not sure where this ends yet, but I know one thing. This morning I checked out of more than a hotel. I checked out of being silent. I didn't always feel like a wallet. It crept in slowly over years and seasons wrapped in the softest words. At first it felt like love. 5 years ago, I wired my sister Brianna $2,500 after she called me sobbing. Mark, her husband, had lost his job at a startup and they were late on rent. Just until we get through the month, she said, "Claire, you're so good with money you won't even notice it's gone." I told myself it was a sister's duty. 3 months later, she needed $1,200 more for a prenatal course. "It's for the baby," she said. I asked about insurance reimbursement, and she fell silent. Then she whispered, "You're not going to say no, right? I mean, you're Aunt Claire now." That's how it always started. A problem, a story, a softened tone that twisted the ask into something noble, an act of love. I'd be cruel to refuse. Mom Karen had perfected it long before Brianna did. When I was growing up, saying no wasn't an option in our house. Selfishness is the root of loneliness, she used to say whenever I hesitated to share something. My favorite blanket, my dinner roll, my birthday money. Saying no makes you cold. She would warn, her voice heavy with disappointment, as if I were already growing into the kind of woman who no one wanted around. So I learned to say yes. I learned it early, and I kept saying it long after I moved to Denver, long after I got my first real job in finance, long after I became the one who had it together. It was Brianna first, then Mom, then Mark. I paid for half of Brianna's hospital expenses when she had Olivia. They told me her insurance wouldn't cover certain scans. I found out later that the hospital had absorbed most of the costs. The money I sent went toward a new car down payment. I paid for Mark's dental work after he cracked a molar. "He's in so much pain," Brianna texted. We're out of options. I wired $3,400 the next morning and skipped a vacation I had planned for myself. When Mom's roof leaked during the winter freeze, I sent $2,100 to cover urgent repairs. I never saw an invoice I never asked. It never even occurred to me that I should. There's a spreadsheet on my laptop labeled Family. At first, I made it just to keep track. I told myself I might need it for taxes, or at least to remember when I'd given what. Over time, it became something else, a quiet ledger of who I'd become to them. I opened that file last night. Every line was color-coded by name. The totals made my throat tighten. $29,742 over 5 years, not including the $14,000 that disappeared last night. I scrolled through it line by line. Not a single payment had been returned. Not a single one. And no one had ever asked how I was doing. Not once. I remembered the night I stayed on the phone with Brianna while she cried over Olivia's fever. "We're out of acetaminophen," she said. "We're not sure if it's COVID. The pharmacy delivery fee is ridiculous. Could you spot us 50? I sent 100 hours later. She posted a photo of dinner at a restaurant with Mark Pasta wine, a fancy dessert, a much-needed date night. The caption read, I looked at the post for a long time. I didn't comment. I didn't ask questions. I just closed the app. Andrew, my youngest brother, never asked for anything. He was quieter, always fading into the background. I used to think we were alike, both careful, both observant. But he never stepped in, never stopped it. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing at me across the dinner table when someone made another suggestion about helping out. He'd look away quickly. I don't blame him. We were raised to keep the peace, and I had always played my part. The truth is, I believed it made me good. Saying yes, being dependable. It made me feel needed, even wanted. Every request came with words like, "Only you and we didn't want to ask, but..." They made me feel chosen. Useful. I only started to question things when I noticed the tone shift, not desperation, expectation. It was when Brianna called and said, "So what can you do this time?" Not could you not. Would you mind? Just what can you do? It was when Mom asked, "Should we put your name on the next water bill, or will you just send the money again?" and laughed like she'd made a joke. I laughed too, but I remember how that laugh stuck in my throat. I keep a photo in my office. It's small, tucked into the side of a bookshelf. Me and Brianna, ages 6 and 9, side by side in a patch of clover behind our old house. She has one arm slung around my neck. I'm grinning so wide, you'd think I just won a prize. I look at that picture sometimes when I forget what we used to be. That photo sits just above the desk drawer where I keep the spreadsheet. One is the memory, the other is the math. The truth is, I didn't give because I was rich. I gave because I thought it was the only way to belong. I thought that if I ever said no, I'd become what Mom warned about: cold, selfish, alone. But when I really stop and look at the pattern, I see it clearly. They never gave me love without conditions. And I gave without ever asking for anything back. I used to think that was generosity. Now I'm starting to wonder if it was just learned silence. The drive to my parents' house is mostly silent. Drew has one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly on my knee. I stare out the window, watching the blurred streets of suburban San Diego roll past, each one more familiar than the last, and yet suddenly unfamiliar in meaning. These are the roads I once rode my bike on, where I trick-or-treated, where I used to wave at neighbors who remembered my name. Now they feel like a prelude to something I can't yet name. The house appears exactly as I remember it: white stucco rose bushes under the front window, the same crooked mailbox that's leaned to the left since I was 16, but something about it looks smaller now, diminished. The front door swings open before I can knock. Brianna is standing there in yoga pants and a long cardigan, her blonde hair tied loosely behind her head. She smiles like nothing's happened. "Oh, good, you came back," she says lightly, stepping aside to let us in. "Mom's just sorting through the wedding album." I walk past her without a word. The living room is bathed in soft afternoon light. The couch is the same one they've had for years, slightly sagging in the middle. My mother sits in her usual spot by the window, a large photo album spread across her lap. She's flipping through pages, slowly pausing at a picture of Jason and his new wife cutting the cake. Across from her, Mark is lounging in Dad's recliner, his feet up on the ottoman, sipping coffee from a mug that used to be mine. "We need to talk," I say, my voice calm but firm. Mom looks up, her face composed. She doesn't seem surprised. Brianna moves to sit beside her, and Mark leans back completely at ease. About the money, I continue the transfers from my account. Brianna raises an eyebrow. "You're really going to make this a whole thing?" "Yes, I say I am." Mom sets the album aside and folds her hands in her lap. "Claire, don't blow this out of proportion." I pull out my phone and open the transaction history. I hold it up, not as proof for them, but as a reminder to myself that I am not imagining this. 3 transfers, I say evenly. 10:43 last night to Brianna, Mark, and you. "I told her not to," Mark says, gesturing toward Brianna. "But she said you wouldn't mind." "You what?" I turn to Brianna, my voice still level. "You always leave your phone lying around," she replies with a shrug. "And your password's that old dog's name." It wasn't hard. I take a breath, steadying myself. "You guessed my password and used my phone to transfer $14,000. I say, without asking. That's theft." Brianna crosses her arms. "Don't be dramatic. It's not like we used it for a vacation or something. It was for Jason. For the wedding." Mom nods. "We thought it made sense. You're doing well? You have no kids, no mortgage, no one to support but yourself." The logic lands like an insult. "So that makes it okay. I ask to take without asking, because I'm not married, because I have a job." "You're not struggling," Mom says, like that's the only line that matters. Drew steps closer, but I raise a hand to stop him. "This is mine to carry." "No one thought to ask. I say not one of you thought I deserved that much respect." Brianna scoffs. "We knew you'd say no. You always act like you're generous, but it's conditional. You keep tabs." "I kept tabs because none of you ever offered to pay anything back." Mom's eyes narrow. "You're talking to your mother. Watch your tone." "I'm speaking clearly," I say for once. The room goes still. Mark swirls his coffee. "You still have, 15 grand left? What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I say, "is that you treated my account like a shared resource, like something you're entitled to." Mom lifts her chin. "I used my part for medication. Brianna needed help with Olivia's preschool. Mark's car needed repairs. It wasn't wasted. But it wasn't yours, I say. None of it was. I take another breath and look at each of them. I've helped all of you. For years. Quietly. No interest, no strings. But this. I hold up my phone again. This crossed a line. You're being cold, Mom says, her voice suddenly sharper. You've always been a little distant, but this is too far. I've always been quiet, I correct her. Not distant. There's a difference, and you mistook my silence for permission. Brianna stands. What are you going to do? Claire, call the police. Sue your own family. I stare at her, and for the first time I feel no hesitation. I haven't decided yet, I say, but don't think you get to decide how I respond. Mark lets out a low laugh. All this over a little money. No, I say not just money. You didn't steal cash, you stole my trust. There's another pause. The clock ticks on the wall louder than usual. Somewhere in the back, I hear the dishwasher running. I just didn't think you'd care. Brianna says quieter now. You always had more than the rest of us. Maybe I did, I reply, but you never even asked. I walk toward the door, Drew following a step behind. Claire, Mom calls out, You're going to tear this family apart. I stop and turn to face her. No, I say this family did that all on its own. Then I open the door and walk outside into the late afternoon sun. And for the first time, I don't look back. By the time our plane lands in Denver, something inside me has shifted. It isn't anger exactly. It's quieter than that, like a wire that's finally stopped humming after years of carrying too much current. Drew holds my hand the whole ride home. He doesn't say much, and I'm grateful for that. His silence isn't pressure, it's presence. The apartment feels colder than usual. I leave my suitcase by the door and head straight for the kitchen. The sunlight coming through the window is thin, a pale streak across the counter. I open the cupboard, pull out a mug, and pour myself a cup of tea. The peppermint smells strong medicinal. I take one sip and leave it untouched on the counter. Instead, I go to my desk. I open my laptop, the same machine I use for work, budgets, taxes. The same place where for years I've quietly tracked every transfer, every deposit, every withdrawal made in the name of family. I pull up the spreadsheet titled Family Ledger. There it is. 5 years of numbers, names, dates. Some cells have notes attached. Olivia's preschool fees, Mom's winter heating, Mark's dental emergency. The list goes on. I scroll slowly. My chest tightens. Next, I open my online banking portal. I start downloading monthly statements going back 5 years. Every time I see a familiar amount, a clean $2,000 here, $3,500 there, I highlight it. I open a new folder on my desktop and begin organizing the PDFs by year, then by recipient. Drew appears behind me sometime later, holding a plate of toast and a glass of water. He sets them down beside me without a word. You haven't eaten all day, he says softly. I'm fine, I answer, not looking up. He watches me work for a few minutes before speaking again. Claire, he says gently, what are you trying to do? I need to see it, I say, all of it. In one place, I need to know what I've been giving away. He nods once and leaves me to it. By evening, the folder labeled Transfers has grown to over 50 files. I begin cross-referencing them with text messages, emails, even handwritten notes. I've saved in a drawer scraps from birthday cards and apology letters where money was quietly requested. Then I find it. Tucked between 2 bank statements from 2020 is a folded piece of paper. It's one of those lined tear-outs from a yellow legal pad. I recognize the handwriting immediately. Brianna's rounded loops. The ink is slightly smudged, but the words hit clean and sharp. If you don't help, what kind of sister are you? That's all it says. No, please, no explanation. Just the accusation hanging there like a verdict. I sit back in my chair and read it again. I don't cry, I don't get angry, but something inside me gives way like a support beam finally splintering. This isn't about money. It never was. It's about how love has always been tied to what I can give, and how silence was the price of belonging. Drew walks back in and sees the paper in my hand. What is that, he asks. I hand it to him. He reads it once, then sets it down carefully on the table. I think you should talk to someone, he says, a professional, just to know your options. I can't take them to court, I say, though my voice is less certain than I expect. If someone else, he says, a coworker, a friend, if they took $14,000 from your account without permission, what would you do? I'd report it, I admit quietly. So why is it different when it's them? I don't answer right away. I turn to the screen where the spreadsheet glows softly in the dim room. Because they're family, I say finally. He nods. And that's why it hurts more, but it doesn't make it right. The next morning, I drive to a small office complex near downtown. It's snowing lightly, the kind of quiet storm that makes everything feel slower, more deliberate. The sign on the door reads, Colorado Office for Financial Crime Investigation. Inside, I meet with a woman named Erica. She's maybe in her 40s with short hair and tired eyes that scan the folder I've brought with the kind of practiced attention that makes me feel both exposed and seen. I hand her a flash drive. On it is everything: bank records, screenshots, emails, and that handwritten note scanned and labeled Exhibit B. The file is titled The Truth. She clicks through a few documents, then looks up. You've already done most of the work, she says. This is more thorough than most cases we get. I needed to see it for myself, I tell her. She nods again. I'll need to open a preliminary report. She says, we'll trace the transfers, verify access logs, interview the parties involved. If there's sufficient evidence of unauthorized access and misappropriation, the case can be forwarded to the district attorney. I swallow hard. My mouth is dry. Do people really go through with this? I ask when it's family. Not often, she says, but the ones who do usually come in looking like you, exhausted, quiet, and finally done. When I return home that evening, I plug in a new flash drive and copy the entire folder onto it. Then I place it in my top drawer right next to the old family photo with Brianna and me sitting in a patch of clover arms around each other like nothing could ever come between us. Then I slide the drawer shut. I'm not the family wallet anymore. And this time I'm not asking for permission to stop. There's a knock at the door just after 6. I'm in the kitchen rinsing out a mug when I hear it. Not the usual ding of the doorbell, just a quiet, patient knock, the kind that doesn't demand anything, the kind that waits. Drew's already on the couch, halfway through an article on his tablet. He looks up, but I've already set the mug in the sink and gone to the door. When I open it, I freeze. Andrew stands on the porch, hands stuffed into the pockets of his jacket, head down like he's rehearsed this moment a dozen times, and still isn't sure he's ready. My little brother. The one who rarely speaks unless spoken to. The one who stayed on the edges of every family event. The one who for years I thought might be the only one who truly saw me, even if he never said it aloud. He looks up, meets my eyes, and exhales. Hey, he says. I step aside without a word and let him in. He walks slowly through the apartment, eyes drifting across the bookshelves, the photos on the wall. He stops at the dining table, the same one we ate at for Thanksgiving last year before everything changed. I watch as he pulls out a chair and sits carefully, deliberately, as if the act itself holds meaning. I sit across from him. I thought you might come eventually, I say. He nods. I wasn't sure I would. Drew quietly enters the room and places a glass of water in front of Andrew, then disappears into the hallway, giving us space. Andrew wraps his fingers around the glass but doesn't drink. I heard what happened, he says finally. With the transfers, with Mom Brianna, Mark. I say nothing. I want him to keep going. I need him to. I should have said something sooner, he continues, but I didn't know if it would matter, or if you'd even want to hear it from me. I nod, slow and careful. I want to hear it now. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded slip of paper, faint creases, worn edges. He slides it across the table. I unfold it, a list of characters and digits, my old login password, my bank app username, and a line underneath written in Brianna's unmistakable handwriting, "Don't tell Claire." I look up at him, heart thudding. I found that on the kitchen counter 3 weeks ago. He says Brianna left it there while she was on the phone with Mom. I heard the conversation. They were talking about how to move the money quietly, so you wouldn't be forced to make a scene. My fingers curl around the paper. And you said nothing. He nods, shame flickering behind his eyes. I was scared. They made it sound like they were doing something necessary, like you were being selfish by holding on to your savings. A familiar ache rises in my chest, the same one I've carried since I was a teenager. The fear of being cast out, the pressure to be generous or be alone. Andrew leans forward, but I knew it was wrong. I knew it. Then I just didn't want to be the one who turned against the family. I meet his eyes, and now. He exhales. Now I see that the family already turned against you. The room feels heavy with that truth. But there's something else beneath it, a quiet hope, small but real. I want to help. He says I want to testify. If it goes to court, I'll tell them what I saw, what I heard, everything. A silence stretches between us. For a moment, I just study him, this man who used to trail behind me with toy dinosaurs and cereal milk on his shirt, the brother who sat quietly while the rest of the family spoke over me. And now here he is. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady present. Why now, I ask barely above a whisper. Because I couldn't sleep after I heard what they did. Because I saw the look in your eyes when you left the house that day. And because you were the only one who ever treated me like I mattered even when no one else did. The tears come slow, almost reluctant. I swipe at them quickly, embarrassed. But he doesn't flinch. He just waits. I reach across the table and squeeze his hand once firmly. You're sure? I'm sure, he says. The door to the hallway creaks as Drew re-enters the room. He sits beside me, listens as Andrew repeats everything in more detail. This time, the conversations, the timing, the tone in Mom's voice when she said Claire won't even notice it's gone. I glance at the empty chair at the far end of the table, the one Andrew used to sit in during every family meal, silent and overlooked. Now he's filling the space with something else. A voice. I'll call Erica in the morning. I say she's the investigator handling the report. Andrew nods. Whatever you need. As he gets up to leave, I walk him to the door. The snow has started falling again, small flakes landing on his shoulders. He pauses before stepping out. Claire, he says. Yeah, I'm sorry it took me this long. I manage a small smile. You're here now. He walks off into the quiet, the snow crunching softly beneath his feet. When I shut the door, I lean against it for a long moment. For the first time since all of this began, I don't feel alone. The courtroom is smaller than I imagined. Muted carpet, soft lighting, a single clock ticking above the judge's bench. There are no dramatic outbursts, no echoing gavels, just the rustle of papers, the quiet scratch of pens, and the low murmur of voices waiting their turn. I sit at the plaintiff's table, a thick binder in front of me labeled Evidence, Claire Morgan. Beside me is Erica, the investigator who walked me through every step of filing the complaint. She's not a lawyer, but she's helped prepare the case, and the district attorney assigned a legal representative for the hearing. Across the room, Brianna and Mark sit side by side. Mark wears a dark blazer that doesn't quite hide the discomfort in his posture. Brianna's arms are crossed. Her expression is unreadable somewhere between defiance and fear. My mother is not here. She submitted a medical exemption for the hearing, citing anxiety and blood pressure concerns. I try not to focus on the empty seat beside my sister. Andrew is sitting a few rows back. He gives me a small nod when our eyes meet. I nod back, grateful for the quiet solidarity. The judge enters a woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled back in a bun. Her nameplate reads, Honorable Judge Rowan Adler. She looks over the paperwork for a few minutes before raising her head. This hearing will examine the complaint filed by Ms. Claire Morgan regarding alleged unauthorized access to personal financial accounts and misappropriation of funds by the defendants, Ms. Brianna Langston and Mr. Mark Langston, she says. The room stills. My attorney begins the presentation of the case. She's steady composed, laying out a timeline of events. The hotel weekend, the 3 unauthorized transfers, the access log tied to my device, the written evidence, the text messages. She presents the flash drive with all records organized by month and recipient, every dollar tracked. Then she calls Andrew to the stand. He walks up slowly but without hesitation. He places his hand on the Bible, takes the oath, and sits. His voice is calm as he begins. He explains the context. how he overheard a phone call in the kitchen weeks before the wedding, how Brianna had written down my login information, how Mom said it was better to take the money quietly than to risk a confrontation that might ruin the weekend. My throat tightens, but I stay composed. Andrew finishes by holding up the slip of paper, the same one he gave me that night. My login, my password, and a note in Brianna's handwriting that read, "Don't tell Claire." The courtroom is silent. Then the defense attorney stands. He tries to minimize the intent. This wasn't theft, he argues. It was a misguided assumption of shared resources between family members. There was no harmful intent, just poor judgment, perhaps fueled by financial stress. Judge Adler remains impassive. He calls Brianna to the stand. She walks up, slowly sits, and places her hands in her lap. She says she believed I wouldn't mind, that she didn't think it would be such a big deal. "No one ever told me I couldn't," she says. I hold her gaze. She doesn't look back. When it's my turn to testify, I walk to the stand with my palms flat to steady myself. I speak clearly. I explain the pattern 5 years of unreciprocated giving, of emotional manipulation, of being expected to provide without hesitation. This wasn't the first time I say, it was just the first time I had proof. The judge asks one question. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" I pause. Because I thought being silent made me a good daughter, a good sister. I thought love was earned by saying yes. She nods, then dismisses me back to my seat. An hour later, after brief deliberation, Judge Adler returns to deliver her ruling. Having reviewed the evidence, including documentation of unauthorized bank transfers, witness testimony confirming premeditated access to the plaintiff's private login information, and the defendant's acknowledgement of intent, this court finds Ms. Brianna Langston and Mr. Mark Langston responsible for unauthorized access and misappropriation of personal financial assets. Brianna stiffens. Mark exhales through his nose but says nothing. The judge continues. As this is a first-time offense, and given the defendant's dependent children, the court is issuing the following judgment. First, restitution in the amount of $14,000 is to be repaid to the plaintiff within 60 days. Second, an additional $6,000 is awarded for emotional distress and breach of trust. Third, a restraining order is issued prohibiting contact, direct or indirect, with Ms. Claire Morgan for a period of 5 years. Fourth, all court costs are to be covered by the defendants. I feel my breath catch, not in victory, not in relief, just in finality. Judge Adler looks at me. Ms. Morgan, this court acknowledges the difficulty of bringing forth a case involving family. It requires courage, and you have shown it. She adjourns the hearing with a single nod. I gather my folder, slowly, careful not to let my hands shake. Behind me, Andrew waits. When I reach him, he says nothing, just walks quietly beside me out of the building. Outside, the air is crisp. A winter breeze moves through the bare trees lining the courthouse steps. Snow hasn't started, but the sky hangs heavy. "You did it," Andrew says. No, I correct him, we did. Drew is waiting near the curb. He hugs me without asking questions, just pulls me into the warmth of his coat and lets me rest there. When I climb into the car, I glance once more at the courthouse behind me. I don't feel triumphant, but I feel free. The morning after the hearing, my phone buzzes before sunrise. I don't need to look at the screen to know who it is. Even in silence, their words arrive like a bruise. First, a message from Brianna. "I hope you're happy. You humiliated us in front of strangers." Then Mark. "You've poisoned the family for a payout." A voicemail from Mom follows a few hours later, soft but laced with hurt. "You were always too proud. Now you've made us strangers." None of them say the word sorry. None of them ask how I'm doing. I don't reply. I don't even save the numbers anymore. Something in me has shifted permanently, and I have no interest in pulling it back into place just to make them comfortable again. I return to work the following week. My coworkers welcome me with the same polite smiles and fresh coffee in the break room. They don't ask about the time off, and I'm grateful. In a world of numbers and projections, the quiet feels almost holy. Still, I feel different inside these walls now. Lighter in some ways, but sharper too. Like I've carved out something raw and necessary just beneath the surface. One night after a long meeting and a cold walk home, I open my laptop and begin writing. I don't name anyone. I don't offer details that would invite a lawsuit, but I write the truth. I write about what it feels like to be the strong one in a family, how that often translates to becoming the wallet the fixer, the one no one asks before taking. I write about the years of guilt that came bundled with every request I write, about the quiet ache of realizing that love in some families is contingent on what you provide. I title the piece I Set Boundaries and I'm Not Sorry for It. It's simple, honest. I post it to a financial wellness forum under a pseudonym. I close the tab and go to sleep, unsure if anyone will read it. I don't check it again for days. When I do, the comment section has exploded. There are dozens of replies, then hundreds. People telling their own stories of siblings who drained their savings, of parents who treated their adult children like pension plans. Women in particular write with aching familiarity, using words like expected, obligated, invisible. One line keeps appearing again and again. I thought I was the only one. I sit in my kitchen barefoot in a warm sweater, reading comment after comment until the screen blurs. I scroll not to feed my ego, but to confirm what I've suspected all along, that financial betrayal doesn't start in the bank. It starts in the way people believe your boundaries are negotiable. A few days later, I receive an email with no subject line. The body is short. Thank you. Your story helped me say no to my father for the first time in my life. He said I was ungrateful. I told him I was healing. I print that message and place it in a frame. It sits on my desk now beside a new copy of the article, formatted cleanly and bookmarked. Symbolic maybe, but grounding. I begin volunteering at a women's financial literacy program downtown. Every other Saturday, I meet with women who are rebuilding their budgets, their lives, and most of all, their voices. Some of them are recovering from abusive marriages. Others are navigating toxic parents or children with gambling problems. Some just need help learning how to say, "That's not my responsibility." I don't offer therapy. I don't have all the answers. But I offer the assurance that it's not cruel to protect your peace, that no one has the right to weaponize love against your boundaries. The first time I say this out loud in a session, an older woman starts to cry. She tells me her daughter has been draining her retirement account for years, calling it help. She thought if she cut her off, she'd lose her only child. But now she says she sees what's really been lost: her self-respect. We sit in silence for a while after that, just holding the truth together. Drew supports all of it. He helps with slide presentations, drives me to workshops, and makes dinner when I come home too tired to lift a pan. He doesn't need me to justify any of it. He knows the weight I've been carrying, and he knows what it means to set it down. One night, I come home to find a new folder on my desk. Inside is a printed version of my article, now formatted for a local magazine. At the top, a sticky note in Drew's handwriting reads, "You said what most of us have been too afraid to say." I smile, tears catching in my throat. Not from grief this time, from something closer to peace. I don't think I'll ever get an apology from Brianna or Mark, or my mother. They've stopped calling. The silence is thick, but it doesn't suffocate me anymore. It feels like distance I've chosen. Space I can finally breathe in. Sometimes I wonder what Olivia, my niece, will think of me when she's old enough to understand, if she'll hear the stories they tell and think I walked away for selfish reasons. I hope one day she finds the truth that I didn't walk away to hurt anyone. I walked away to stop being hurt. I didn't do it for revenge, I did it for restoration. Because peace doesn't always come wrapped in forgiveness. Sometimes it arrives when you stop pretending that pain is love. And once you've tasted peace, you stop begging to sit at tables that require you to starve yourself emotionally. Now I sit at tables where I am fed. And I no longer fear walking away from the ones that left me empty. It's been almost a year. The sun is spilling through the kitchen window, casting long bands of light across the floor. Outside, spring is just starting to soften the edges of winter. The trees beyond our porch are dusted in pale green, like they're remembering how to breathe again. I'm barefoot, holding a warm cup of tea in my hands, standing still in the quiet of our new home. Our home. The word still feels fresh in my mouth. Drew and I were married in October in a small ceremony beneath the cottonwoods at Evergreen Lake. Only 20 people were there, just those who had stood beside me in truth. No white lies, no forced smiles, no blood ties binding people who never deserved to stay. My brother Andrew gave the toast. He choked up halfway through but kept going. "She taught me that real love doesn't demand silence," he said, voice steadying. "It honors it." That sentence stayed with me long after the night was over. Now every morning when I wake up in this house with its creaky hardwood floors and wide-open windows, I feel something I never felt growing up. Safe. Drew leaves early most days for his consulting work. He always kisses my shoulder before he goes, even if I'm still half asleep. Sometimes he leaves little notes on the fridge, not asking for anything, just reminders. Thinking of you. Dinner's on me tonight. Thanks for being my peace. It's a different kind of love than I was raised to understand. One that doesn't require sacrifice to be valid. One that doesn't see boundaries as rejection. Some days I still feel the ache of absence. I haven't spoken to Mom since the court ruling Brianna tried once sent a short email that read more like a defense than an apology. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Not every wound requires confrontation. Some only need closure. I've learned that silence can be healing when it's no longer expected of you. In the guest room, I keep a small chest of mementos. Inside are pieces of the life I used to carry: the printed bank statements, the folded guilt note from Brianna, the framed thank you message from the woman who found her own strength through my words. There's also the flash drive labeled The Truth that once held all the documentation for my case. I haven't plugged it in since the hearing. I haven't had to. My bank app still sits on my phone untouched for weeks at a time. I used to check it every morning. Not for the balance, but for the fear that someone else might be in there moving money, crossing lines. That fear is gone now, replaced by trust, not in people necessarily, but in myself. I keep a journal again. It's nothing elaborate, just a slim black notebook I leave on the nightstand. Some entries are long, others just a sentence. This morning's reads: "I used to be generous. Now I am whole." I close the book gently. That sentence has been sitting with me for months. I used to define my worth through what I could give, what I could endure. I thought strength was being able to carry everyone's burdens without complaint, but real strength, I've learned, is knowing when to set them down and choosing not to pick them back up again. I thought family meant forever, that blood demanded loyalty no matter the cost, but love without respect isn't family, it's a transaction. And I'm not for sale anymore. I look down at my hand. The ring Drew gave me is simple silver, no stone. I chose it that way. I didn't want it to glitter. I wanted it to stay quiet and honest, like the life we're building. There's a framed photo on the mantle of us at the wedding. I'm laughing, head tilted back. He's looking at me like I'm something sacred. I glance around the living room. Now the shelves filled with books we picked together, the plants thriving in the sunlight, the quiet hum of a home that isn't built on expectation. I haven't lost anything. I've only stopped giving myself to those who never offered anything back. Outside, the wind moves gently through the trees. It feels like an exhale. I take one too. Whatever weight I once carried is gone now. The chain is broken, and I am free. Claire's story is a reminder that not all betrayals come from enemies. Sometimes they come from the people we're told to trust most. She gave quietly and consistently, believing love meant sacrifice. But when that love became expectation, when her silence became permission, she chose to speak through pain and clarity. She reclaimed her worth, not with loud defiance, but with steady resolve. Her journey wasn't about revenge. It was about freedom. Real family, real love does not demand your silence or your savings. It honors your boundaries. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or used under the name of love, know this: you are not alone. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to be whole. If Claire's journey resonated with you, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for more stories that honor quiet strength and personal truth.